Hello, and welcome once again to another episode of Inside the World of Max Headroom.
Whatever.
Who said that?
Whatever.
Huh? Ha ha ha. Just starting the show off with a little bit of humor, because what I got to talk about ain't so funny. Uh, you know, I am not a real political person, and it may seem to the contrary because I've been making some of these tapes that have to do with politics, but this is really a recent kind of interest of mine. So I want to again, before I begin today, give you a disclaimer that I am not a political analyst. I never took a course in political science, and I again don't want to go down as Rachel Maddow. That's for sure. But you know, I have been getting more and more interested in the whole political scene worldwide, really as a result of the Jeff Epstein narrative. And I made a tape about that before, and I bet you a lot of you know where I stand on it, so I don't need to do it again. But a funny thing happened to me last night. I again have mentioned before that I cut off cable because I wasn't going to pay the outrageous prices for stupid ass commercials for so long. So I've been streaming everything. And so yesterday I turned on what I thought was the first presidential debate. And it said live and everything, and the banner on YouTube said, breaking news, well, it turns out it was like weeks ago. But anyway, that shows you how political I am, okay? But I started to watch it, and I started thinking about a lot of things as I was actually watching it. Now, notice what I'm saying. Not as I was listening, okay, but as I was watching the uh, the debate. And I say watching because when you watch instead of listen, again, you start to see the forest for the trees, I think. Now, keep in mind one thing. I am not in this tape going to try to talk about the content of any of these Democratic candidates' positions. Okay, it's funny because the news to me is so difficult to understand sometimes that like it doesn't make any sense to me at all. And I'm pretty educated, so I have to make the assumption the news doesn't make a lot of sense to a lot of people. Um, so I really don't feel I can talk about really the actual content or of what their issues are. But you know what? I'm not so sure they can talk about it either. I just think they know what's right to say. But see, that's from watching. That's really not from listening. So what I want to do is like try to. God, I hate to say make some suggestions, but maybe a way to just sort of for people to frame the way that, believe it or not, they may vote in this upcoming election. Because, it seems like there really is no election because there's an impeachment, basically. They can Republicans can stonewall it all they want, but there's going to be an impeachment. Now, how it turns out, I don't know. But what we have left to at least be working with is the Democratic Party, of course. And so I was watching this first, I guess it was presidential debate, and again I say watching, and a lot of things that really have to do with my understanding of systems theory and coming basically from my training as a family therapist started to get activated in me, and I started watching and observing these things, and I started thinking about stuff, and I wanted to try to lay it out for you. So that's what I'm going to try to do. Okay. Uh, Let me first give you an understanding of where I'm coming from. Okay, I don't want to be talking about who to vote for. Okay, nor do I want to sway you one way or the other. Although probably unconsciously I will, just because I got a favorite. But I'm not. But that's anyway. That's irrelevant. Um, but I want you to think about how you vote. And you see, I think maybe it's good that I'm not some sort of political science expert because in having someone who's a bit naive to things but is observant, um, may lead to another lens to look at how one orients oneself to trying to make decisions, at least in the Democratic Party so far, who will run in the eventual election against who knows. but at least we have that to work with. And a lot of things came to light to me. And like I said, it comes not from the content of what each person has to say, but more how what I understand about systems theory and how change occurs. Because let's face it, folks, we need some changes because the world, and especially this country, sucks as far as I'm concerned at the moment. And in my last tape, I tried to explain a circular dynamic that I think is just treacherous, which is kind of the putting in the toilet of the Jeff Epstein narrative, which I think is more important than anything. Well, speaking about what's more important than anything, I'm going to tell you something about the way I'm oriented to voting. Okay, and that is, yes, I would like to see a shitload of things change in this country. Okay, a shitload of things. However, I think that's not even possible until the United States of America is viewed by other countries in the world in a more positive light. Because it just seems to me like everybody thinks we're a bunch of idiots ever since we elected, I suppose you could say, or not say, President Trump. And I tried to explain all that in my last tape, so I'll reference you to that. I don't want to go into it completely. But this place needs a change. Matter of fact, I tried to do some things with some music at the beginning of the tape. I was going to start it with the old Buddy Miles tune, oh, my mind keeps going through so many changes. But it didn't work out. Anyway, and, I think this country needs a change. But see, there's theories about change in general, not the rhetoric that you hear from the candidates that are their solutions to change. There's actually theories about how large systems change. And that's what I want to bore you with for a couple of minutes. And then I want to apply it to just a couple of candidates to try to explain how one might choose to decide who to vote for. And it may not have as much to do with what he says, but rather the process unto which he is a part of in the international scene. Because I'm telling you, I don't believe this country can change at this point until the rest of the world has a little respect for us. And I'm not sure we're so deserving of a lot of respect. So that should be the first job. We are not an isolated country. We live amongst a shitload of others. And a whole bunch of them live in this country too, and they're still from other places. So I think we owe, the ethics to drop, as I mentioned in my last tape, the position of power, which demands respect, but rather ethics and humanity and things like that, altruism, along with our wealth and shit like that, to improve our image in the international scene. We're not looked at very nice. And as I mentioned before, I don't even want to go to another country because I'm not sure I'd be so welcome there, because I think I'd be seen as some kind of idiot. And there's probably reasons that those folks in other countries should feel that way about us at this point. Look at what's going on here. Senators, or excuse me, congressmen stonewalling and refusing to go along with a subpoena. As I said before, what if it was a poor black dude in the south side of Chicago, man? They'd be all over him. But somehow the ruling class gets to do this. Well, anyway, I got to keep myself from going on about the ruling class. But I'll get back to it a little bit, I promise. But I want to talk to you about a theory of change. Okay, how large systems or smaller systems change. And this is taken, just so you know, I'm not talking out of my ass. This material is taken from a place called the Mental Research Institute, which is part of Stanford University. The Mental Research Institute itself is in Palo Alto, California. I'm not sure if Stanford is, but I know they're connected with Stanford. And the people who particularly are responsible for this sort of thinking is Paul Watzlawick, Richard Fisch, Lynn Siegel, perhaps Jay Haley even a little bit. But these are the people who develop this theory of change and how people can change. So let me try to explain it. Their theory basically, again, was based on families with problems, okay? But this theory can be applied to any sort of living organism, any kind of system, okay? anything where there's interaction going on. Um, so this has to do with what's called attempted solution theory. It's really a very simple theory. They said that they observed, actually, in a big research project they did, that's how it all got started, that people may set out trying to solve a problem, but in the process of solving the problem, they may be so wed to the solution that they don't notice it isn't working. And that the only thing that they do to try to change the situation is to do more of or less of what they're convinced is the solution to the problem, but it isn't affecting the symptom. In this case, it's often children, okay? And that's basically the idea. So what they would say is the thing you want to do, rather than tell people what to do or how to behave or judge them, you want to try to reverse the attempted solution sequence. Even if it's absurd, they don't really care as much as that the process changes. And that's where they label these two types of change that I want to try to highlight, because I'm going to refer to them as I discuss these various candidates, okay? And that's first order change and second order change. Let me try to explain that just briefly. First order change would be more of the same, only with variations. You understand? It may be a little harder, a little softer, a little more fast, but it's basically the same process. Okay, it doesn't matter what the words are. It's the process that remains kind of the same and keep going, and that's why the problem exists. All right, but there's another thing that's called second order change, and second order change means that rather than repeat the sequence that isn't working, but just using variations of it, rather you have to do something quite different. Okay. And in a way, that's kind of where reverse psychology comes in. But don't think of this as reverse psychology. I'm just trying to make it an example that, sometimes telling somebody not to do something who's in a position of constantly saying to someone they have to do something may take them into a different zone and let them start thinking a little differently about what their own solution is, you see. So second order change, when you have a problem in a symptom, like the presidential election, is really, I think, the target that one has to look at. Instead of looking at the candidates, you have to look at the function of what the candidate is going to do to improve our view by others in the world, because in my opinion, that's the most important thing that has to happen, and it's a precursor to the country being able to change. How can we change when everybody hates us? I mean, it's really hard. And that's how I feel. I feel a lot of people just hate us. So this idea of second order change is just oftentimes like thinking out of the box. I'm sorry if I made the reference to reverse psychology, because probably now all of you'll diss me. But it just has to do with doing something very different than what you've been doing, as opposed to this human tendency to repeat the same attempted solution to a problem, only in various, variations. Excuse me, I guess that was redundant. Okay, so you got the idea? So I would, of course, then propose that in order to make an intelligible decision about what candidate, at least in the Democratic Party, you're going to throw your weight behind, I think I would have to say that you have to consider second order change, because it doesn't seem to have mattered if it, in my head, ever since Bill Clinton, but then before Bill Clinton, there was also, all these other idiots, Reagan no, not Reagan, there was Nixon and blah, 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 because there's always the same process. And it always involves, I hate to say it, but it always involves the powerful and the rich. And, I'm going to leave out white, because in my last tape, I was saying the white. But, I also realized that in doing so, I kind of left out all of like the Arab countries that have a ruling class and that have a role in this universal problem. So I apologize for that mistake I made in the last tape. I'm just not very aware of what those folks are about. Except from what I've heard from the Heidi Fleiss documentary by Nick Bloomfield. I'm sorry. But anyway, so I was watching this this debate, and I just want to highlight a couple of characters Because in terms of whether they're really proposing a first order change or a second order change, you see, or whether they may not even be proposing it, because that gets into the content or the rhetoric of what they're telling you they're going to do. I'm talking about their presence as the president, who they are as the president, and what that means to the rest of the world about us regaining our integrity. Boy, I think that was important what I just said, and I can't repeat it. So let's take a look at a couple of these characters, some of these candidates, and see whether they fall into like a first order or second order positioning, just in terms of creating a change that's needed. Because you see, I don't think one or the other is going to make a shitload of difference. I mean, say that's kind of naive. Yeah, some of them could, because like look what Trump did, okay? But when you look at that group of Democratic candidates, I mean, none of them seem like evil people to me. But I think that what's going to take to make a change is somebody who steps out of the box. That's what's going to do it. Not somebody who just says they have a better way of doing what we've been indoctrinated by the system or the machine, I think, as David Icke would say, to believe what a valuable candidate is. You see, so I want to try to explain it. And it may sound really stupid, and I may get a lot of comments in the bottom that, make me out to look like I'm some kind of weirdo, but look, give me a chance. So let's take a look at Joe Biden. Joe Biden has been touted as the most experienced candidate. He was the vice president to Obama, who was very respected. He seems to be the forerunner, I think, as far as the Democrats go. But let me remind you of something if you think about first order change versus second order change, okay? The biggest one is that he's the most experienced. Think about it. If he's the most experienced in dealing with politics, then he's the most experienced in responding to this machine in the way that he's been programmed to respond to it. You follow? Also, Joe Biden is probably the richest candidate there. See, Norris, I'm not talking about any of their plans. Let's just look at them and what they mean to us and to other people, okay? Joe Biden is also probably one of the richest candidates. So what does that mean? Well, that means a Democrat, Republican, I don't give a fuck. He's making more, he's saving more money on tax cuts that are given to the powerful and rich, which we don't seem to be able to shake in the traditional bipartisan system. Like, it doesn't matter for some reason. They talk it, but, the tax breaks still go to the rich and the middle class still pay more. So, that makes me a little bit leery. Again, if you look at like him doing something that's been done by so many people and it's so accepted, whatever this thing is with the Ukraine, whether it's his son, I don't give a shit. I have a question. It's nothing against the Ukraine, but how come this guy is taking advantage of people who are underprivileged in another country to get cheap labor out of? I'm assuming that's what it's about. Again, I'm no political analyst. I'm not going to talk about the content. But he's another guy who's, not giving jobs in America and sending stuff to China, which is just like doing whatever he's doing in the Ukraine. He's not keeping the money here, see? And that, to me, keeps him in the genre of really in the first order sort of process, you see? Let's see. Oh, there's also been, people are really bitching me out about this one, but there's also been some accusations about his sexual appropriateness. Now, maybe he's an innocent guy and he's just something to sling shit at. But, again, if you think about the first order change, we've been trained by the machine to sort of dismiss, even with the Me Too generation, gals or guys, whatever, I'm sorry. You're doing the right thing. I'm not criticizing you, but I don't think it's gotten Harvey Weinstein's ass in jail yet. I haven't seen that. And look at the Jeff Epstein thing. Yeah, all those Me Too's, but look at how the machine, the system, controlled that. So when I start hearing stuff about sexual misconduct, yeah, maybe it's shit slinging. That's for the viewership to figure out, okay? But that makes me a little paranoid too. So if you add all that together, the fact that he's the most experienced, which means he's the most indoctrinated into the machine or the system, and the worldview of how politics work, that he benefits from the tax structure more than any of the other candidates, and there's sexual allegations that are starting to rumble about him. And, look, it takes two to tango. He is the focus of this bad thing that Trump did in the Ukraine. Now, okay, we can find all reasons. His son, it's this, it's that. But you know what? It's still Joe Biden that's being talked about that. So how is that somehow? I don't know. It just feels to me like, wait a minute, we don't have jobs here. How come you got some kind of company out in the Ukraine where you're probably hiring cheap labor? I don't, that to me is very much in the tradition of the American process of, shipping out all our work to China because we can get it cheaper, but we still hate them. Crazy. But so I'd say be wary of Joe Biden, not because of anything he says, but because of what we know about him. He is of the ruling class, benefiting from the tax structure, as sexual things. And most importantly, he's the most experienced, which in this case of disparity, I would have the most concerns about because he's the most indoctrinated. Okay, I've been talking for 21 minutes. Let's move on. Kamala Harris, it would always be nice to see a minority, and especially two minorities, a woman and a African American. But she too entered into a first order process because what I saw her do was start out, the first words of her mouth were to bash Trump and remind all the Democrats that they need to get that asshole out of office. She doesn't think we know that already. Are you really worried that any liberal person wants Trump in office? But you see what she's doing is exactly what Trump's doing. She's going to bash him like he bashes everybody else. So to me, again, that's not thinking out of the box strategically in terms of presenting yourself to the American public as a presidential candidate. It's more what I'd even call identification with the aggressor. You're becoming like the person you hate. So again, to me, that's in the first order genre, okay? But, and again, I'm not trying to sway anybody because I don't have the time to go through all these candidates. It's just something that dawned on me about first order change and second order change, okay? Now, next candidate. Let's take a look at Bernie Sanders, okay? And you see I get a little smile on my face. I wish somebody would give him a physical makeover because I think that that's something that may, at least to visual people like myself, be a little alienating because he doesn't look like, he's got his shit together too well. But when you hear the dude talk, to me, he talks second order change. Why? The S word, socialism. Oh my God. All of us baby boomers that have been taught about communism have attached communism to socialism, like they're the same word. And they're so far from it that, it's ridiculous, okay? But, oh boy, Bernie's a socialist, and so he might be a commie. So we got to worry about him because we're not ready to, or the ruling class is not ready to share the wealth with the rest of us, you see? So in that genre, just his character and what he represents to the possibility of change, if you believe in the notion of first and second order change, and if you believe in the fact that maybe a different image of a president, whether you agree with his issues or his rhetoric or not, maybe if other people saw this guy who talks a language that other countries talk, socialism, maybe the ruling class would lose something, but maybe we wouldn't be viewed so negatively by other people in the world. I don't think there's too many people who really like us. Even Israel, I don't think they like us. They use us, and I'm Jewish, and I'll say it. I think they're just using us, and we use them too. But anyway, well, I bet you that made me real popular. Well, at 66, shit like that don't matter no more. Anyway, also, if we talk about Bernie, let's take a look at just the content of socialism. Now, I'm going to go to the content for a second. Not his plan. I don't give a fuck about his plan. But along with socialism comes socialized healthcare, right? Look around the world. Everybody's first order orientation to socialized medicine is, oh my God, I won't be able to see my doctor. Oh my God, my doctor's my precious person. That's so full of shit. Because look at how well socialized medicine works, especially in Canada. But from my understanding, it's like all over the world, even in countries where they don't have the money for adequate health care, at least it's universal. I think maybe I'm wrong about all that, some of that, but I know that socialized medicine has proved itself to be an efficient means of giving people the health care they need as fellow human beings in a country or the world. Okay, so socialism, how can it be so bad if all these other countries are raving about it? I haven't heard about anybody in a socialized medicine like Canada waiting in line for heart surgery like everybody worries. As a matter of fact, I've even heard that in Russia, which I think has socialized medicine, that they actually developed a technique to remove cataracts earlier than we do, just because they know that people are going to end up getting them. So they might as well. It's easier to take them out earlier than when it's later. You see, so that's not so bad either. I don't think. Because you don't have to wait till you're blind to go in and then wonder if your insurance is going to pay for it, right? And let's see. So, whether we're going to call it, Medicaid worldwide or Obama's Medicaid or Medicare or whatever, the fact that Bernie comes with a socialistic orientation, and also I'll point out another thing too. Yeah, he's probably got some dough, but I don't think he comes even close to the ruling class. And being socialistic, I don't think he'd want to be part of the fucking ruling class. So I think that Bernie, from a systems perspective, if you can get out of the system's first order way of getting you to think about how to choose a presidential candidate, at least you should consider that the fact that maybe Bernie is cool, and maybe there's nothing to be afraid about socialism. I don't want to talk you into that. I just want you to know that maybe that's what it takes to jumpstart this fucking country. That's what I'm saying. I don't care what his plan is. The fact that if you introduce socialism, which is so, feared and abhorred by American public, that may be what we need. Because it's really the middle class that needs it anyway, and it's the ruling class that's running it. So Bernie, it seems to me to be a guy who at least isn't going to benefit from the tax breaks to the degree that the like Joe Biden does, or the rich and powerful ruling class. He's not benefiting that much from the rich and the powerful, the ruling class. I mean, he can't even afford a good haircut. Sorry, Bern. I love you still. So I would say that Bernie also offers a chance at second order change. Who you choose to vote for is up to you. If Biden can find a way to show me he can create a second order change, then I'm all for him too. And now there's one more I just want to discuss, which I think is very interesting. I know I'm going on, but let me try it. And that is Andrew Yang, or Yang. I'm not exactly sure how you pronounce that. Now, there's two reasons that I've seen of him, and that's all I really know about the guy. Okay, I mean, he could be Mao Zedong's great niece or nephew. Or maybe in the transgender world, maybe he's his niece. I don't know. But anyway, the guy impresses me for a couple of reasons. One is I saw an interview with him and his wife, and all I can tell you is what I saw. It wasn't what they said. It was what I saw. Was just a good, nice, comfortable American, what appeared to me to be kind of like middle class, even though I know the guy's an author and a lawyer and all that kind of shit. He still seemed to me to be sort of like just like ordinary folks, And I liked the way he danced with his wife, and I liked the way his wife corrected him, and he absorbed that. And there was something about that seemed so different than looking at, like, say, Trump and whatever the hell her name is, I can never pronounce it, or Bill and Hillary. Oh my God, look at the difference there. I just got this very comfortable feeling that they were like really human beings, and that to me is a second order genre Very different than the way I've seen even Bill and Hillary when they were holding hands with Chelsea in the middle and singing whatever it is, na 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 na. You know, when he got elected the first time, they still didn't look comfortable. They looked staged. This, what I saw on TV, looked very honest and earnest. And maybe I'm a simpleton and simple things matter to me, but that was one thing that indicated to me something of a second order change. They weren't stuffed shirts. Okay. But more important, and I'm saving this for the end, is he's Asian. He's Asian. Now, why is that so important? I'll tell you. One reason is go ahead and take one of those DNA tests, okay, and find out where your heritage is. And everybody I've talked to who's ever taken one finds out there's some Asian in them. Isn't that interesting? Okay? So that also, you know, isomorphically indicates to me that there's a shitload of Asians in the world that I'm so worried it views us in such a horrible way. Okay? Second of all, we destroyed, Japan with atom bombs. Okay? We killed innocent people. Now, yes, we did build the place back, from the best I understand. But, you know, that could easily be dismissed as guilt or whatever. But see, if we had an Asian president, then that would further support the fact that, you know, yeah, we did have to blow those guys up at one point, but, you know, we're trying to do our best because, look, we have an Asian president. And I'm not talking about a token Asian because I think the guy is a very intelligent, bright dude. But see, to me, that again is a second order change, the same way that Barack Obama could be defined as a second order change because he was African American. Think about that. The most racist country in, well, not the most, but one of the most racist countries in the world, the good old USA, ends up with a black president. You don't think that improved our view of, by the rest of the world? That we had a black president. How many other places have had black presidents except maybe Africa? And even they don't get black presidents in South Africa or whatever. I don't know what I'm talking about. But anyway, maybe Barack Obama, one of the things that, made him so, or helped our country be viewed in a more positive way was the fact that we had a black president and there's a shitload of black people in the world at large. So it says something about us. It says we're flexible. We're not prejudiced as it seems. We're open to other things. See, that's a second order. That's thinking out of the box. Now, I'm not saying that was a strategy. Oh, let's put a token black guy in so we can get viewed better by the world. It just happened to happen. But if you look at that, it's a step outside the box. But then we step back in the box when we went and elected a guy named Trump and went back to the old first order level of machinery that the politicians, tend to operate by, because they're involved in a first order web of nonsense. And in order to change and improve ourselves, we have to improve ourselves in terms of the way that the rest of the world views us. And, also, Asians are usually pretty humble people. I really respect that about most Asians. And we need a humble president. We just came out. I'm not even going to use the clinical words because I hate people who do that and start labeling people. But we came out with a fucking asshole redneck. Okay, how's that for clinical? As a president. But, to have an Asian who, if you just explore, most Asians, they come from a humble sort of like, worldview. The cops don't carry guns. I don't know. They bow with karate. Okay, they were the kamikazes, but who knows how that got to happen? That's such a mess. I also think that it would be very interesting to have an Asian president from a second order perspective in terms of how our relations might change with China, how our relations might even change with North Korea, because they're still, I don't know how to say it, they're still Asian. So, if you think from a second order change, that could really improve things drastically. And I think I'm going to stop. I've been talking for 34 minutes. This is my longest tape. But think out of the box. Second order change. Remember, that all the presidents that have been elected have always benefited from the tax benefits. It's always ascribed to the Republicans, but yet the Democrats still get it. Think about the Clintons, who represented themselves as Democrats, and they were really Republicans and just part of the machine still. I don't know, but try to think out of the box when you vote. I don't care if you vote for Bernie or whatever, as long as you realize that you don't repeat the same attempted solution that the system has programmed you to believe is the way to orient yourself to the electoral process. I think that's a good time to stop. Hold on. And this has been another episode of Max Headroom. Thanks. Hope this made some sense. If not, you can put it in the comments section below.